Hello and welcome everyone, a new episode of Money Means Business. We do have a number of economic files which we are going to discuss today. Last week we enjoyed together 3 days of a story of a nation, or حكاية وطن. This conference in which all, or let's say several key ministers, occupying very distinguished ministerial portfolios, they were there to tell us about the past 10 years and the achievements made on the ground and how we can add more and more. Also, we do have presidential tours. We do have a speech by Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, tours by Prime Minister Dr. Madbouli, field visits by many ministers to many national mega projects to follow up on the ground and in detail the pace of work in all these national mega projects, all for the best interest of the Egyptian citizen, because all the time the Egyptian citizen is the core of all efforts exerted by the state. We are going to turn back to discuss this and in detail with my dear guest live here in the studio. But before we start, let's go to this detailed comprehensive report regarding a deal which was signed recently between the Egyptian Central Bank and its UAE counterpart. We are going to be back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Before we start, let me first welcome my dear guest live here in the studio, Dr. Kholy, Professor of Management and former Dean of Faculty of Commerce, Ain Shams University. Thank you very much for being with us,
sir. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's start when we talk about achievements. By the way, 10 years, it's nothing when it comes to the history of a nation, particularly when it is a nation like us, when we talk about Egypt, we are talking about thousands of years of civilization. So in less than 10 years to find all these achievements on the ground, and we are hoping to achieve more despite the fact that there are global crises which were not that much helpful to let us go forward and to achieve more. Let's start with industry, for example. And to take into consideration, it's not about national mega projects in industry, but to localize industry and to make sure that we are that keen to use to the maximum our natural resources, our raw materials, not just to export them, but to manufacture them and to have our own products. Made in Egypt is our target or our aim. Would you please, sir, I'd like to listen.
First of all, the slogan of Made in Egypt, it started like 6 years ago. When President Sisi was in power, he's in power, he mentioned that 6 years ago, and the rule of new development in Egypt is to how to manage your natural resources, how to maximize the use of your natural resources. Instead of exporting raw material, now we are working very hard in order to utilize and build the industry using our raw materials. Instead of raw materials, we add value to it and we manufacture it, and we have the workforce, we have the location, therefore we are able to produce our product. Localization for the whole industry, I believe we cannot talk about it now, but we can say 80%, 70 to 80% of our Made in Egypt, it should be using Egyptian natural resources, materials, labors, and so on. I believe in 9 years, and due to the 3 days conference, which is called Nations Narrative, explain for us in a very transparent way how we did and what we did in the last 9 years in all different sectors, especially in industry. We have, what we call it as a conventional industry. Now we have, and I remember President Sisi 4 years ago, he mentioned that we have to use the fourth industrial revolution technology in order to enhance our manufacturing sector in all different sectors. And we saw that in many areas in Egypt, whether it's a mega project, whether it's a joint venture, for example,
small and medium enterprises,
Chinese,
you name it.
and also we start to focus on what we call it as a feeding industry.
Yeah.
For feeding industry, and we saw a couple of years ago in Nasr City free zone, a lot of industry, feeding industry, which is not localization. It is really 80% of their production, it goes overseas, and that it brings for us hard currency in order to reduce the deficit from our foreign currency.
Yeah.
And that is the good news.
Amen to that, sir. And if you permit me, sir, I'd like also to focus on science and how these projects are based on scientific research, feasibility studies, geoeconomy. Now, relatively, these terms, they are not anymore weird or strange or, oh, are we going to start from scratch? Yes, if we need to start from scratch, we will. But what we are doing is to build on what was achieved before. I mean, for example, to have Damietta as a hub for furniture, then it should turn to be the city of furniture built according to the latest international standards. Rubeki, for example, the leather city, just the same. And this is the way to have this mix between our craftsmen, our veteran, very well experienced artists, they are not less than that, but to afford or to supply, to provide them with science, with research, to make their life easier and in the same time to increase their productivity. How do you see this?
First of all, we can summarize that we are not to reinvent the wheel. The wheel is there, what you add to it, add value to it. And that's what we should integrate academic institution, research institution. We should marry industry with our university, our research and development, our scientific center, in order to be able to provide the industry with the high-tech or fourth industrial revolution. And I believe we saw many universities now, they have very, very specific programs in terms of artificial intelligence, in terms of Internet of Things, in terms of 3D printing, and all of that is really integrated between university as a research institution and with industry, not only industry, with agriculture and with all different sectors in Egypt. And when you integrate research, scientific research, and be creative in order to produce more and more new product here in our land in Egypt, that is very important. Also, we should maximize the use of our natural resources. And I believe for the next coming 5-10 years, we'll be able, the theme for that is how to manage your resources. Yes. We have a lot of resources. It has been misused before.
Or even neglected.
Or neglected for hundreds of years. Now we really focus on that. What we really have to look and work hard in producing product and service with high level of quality. I remember 2018, also President Sisi, he declared 2018 is to produce quality in terms of high quality of product and service. And we have the advantage, we have the competitive advantage
because
to do that in the future.
Competitiveness, sustainability are very much important words. We will not be able to compete except with having this high quality, and sustainability, resilience, continuity is also that important, or we are not going to find a place because the competition is really fierce. But let me go to the speech, for example, of His Excellency Minister of Trade and Industry, Engineer Ahmed Samir. And when he talked about the industrial zones, and when he said that now there is a competition among different multinational companies, different even countries, who is going to have first their own industrial zones, whether it's going to be China or Russia, for example, in the Suez Canal Economic Zone, and how this is going to be for our best interest, but it's going also to be a win-win situation between us as Egypt and the other countries who are going to be keen to come and to invest here.
It's already, we have a lot of countries heavily investing in Egypt now. You mentioned China, you mentioned Russia, and India also, and even the States, where a large cooperation, multinational corporations, whether it's European, whether it's American, they came to invest in Egypt. And that is not yesterday or today or tomorrow. It has been many project, joint venture established already here in Egypt. And remember, when it comes to industry, you cannot really have a joint venture today and you see the result the next day. No, it takes the cycle for industry. It takes from 3 to 5 years in order to see the fruits of this kind of investment. I believe we have the environment to do that. We have political stability. We have economical stability in a way or another.
And developed infrastructure network.
And also we have the communication infrastructure. We have all different type of infrastructure. And you can name it in the last 9 years.
I'm going to add another added value, because in the same session where His Excellency Minister of Trade and Industry had his speech, Her Excellency Minister of International Cooperation, Dr. Rania Al-Mashad, had her speech, and she spoke about the fruitful results between her ministry and our development partners, whether they are financial institutions, they are economic institutions, financing institutions, and how it's really now that clear in front of all that Egypt can be a hub for investment and the Ministry of International Cooperation is the go-between, is the link between the investors, particularly in the field of industry, and those or our development partners worldwide. How do you see this, sir?
I believe Egypt, it will be the hub for mega industry in the very near future. We started already 4 years ago, and it will be the hub to attract many international and multinational institution cooperation to come and operate in Egypt. We have, as we mentioned, the infrastructure, we have the stability, we have the security, and so on, and we have
the
our
golden
labor
license,
forces.
we have,
And as you mentioned before, competitiveness is a mega issue right now. I remind you, next week I will be in the States.
Inshallah.
I'm a member of American Society for Competitiveness. I'm active member that and the board member in this association. And really what we're really looking for is to build in our competitive advantage, maximize the use of our competitive advantage. I also look for making a branding for our product and service.
This is very important.
And branding is very important, but it has to be high quality with low cost. And now in our industrial sector, we are working to have what we call it as a waste-free environment. In terms of when we hosted for COP27 last year, we are working very hard is to protect our environment using new technology in energy like green hydrogen, for example, solar energy, wind energy in our manufacturing facility. All of that comes together in order to advance our our ranking, because there is in the world we call it as a competitiveness index. The more you advance in this competitive index, that is a good news for our economy. We'll be able to export our product or service abroad, and that is the real issue. We have to create our branding. Branding is very important, and we have to be able to build a marketing strategy. We have Egypt Vision 2030, and beside that, we should really work hard in order to market ourselves, not internally, externally.
And because of that, Her Excellency Minister El-Mashat spoke about a very brand new term, an important one in the same time, economic diplomacy.
Absolutely.
If you want to elaborate on this, because I think not so many people know much about this term, economic diplomacy.
Remember, Dr. Rania Al-Mashat, responsible for all different funds, comes to Egypt and so on. So in order to attract foreign direct investment, it's not a financial issue, it's the political issue.
Because she is the governor representing Egypt in so many international economic institutions.
Absolutely. And that is very important. We should really work in ourselves first in order to have a representative in all international arena, international association, whether in the United Nations or International Monetary Fund and so on. We have a representative, and we have to maximize that in the future. Remember, when with the 3-day summit, which is narrative, nation narrative, it's really not one ministry with another. No, we work now as a teamwork. It is not industry by itself or agriculture by itself or investment by itself. We work, the government of Dr. Madbouli, really, they organize a teamwork orientation. We can
and
work
because of
as
this,
several
the
ministries.
speeches were together. For example, Dr. Halal Saeed, Minister of Planning, with Dr. Muhammad Ma'it, Minister of Finance. Dr. Engineer Ahmed Samir, Minister of Trade and Industry, and Dr. Rania Al-Mashat, Minister of International Cooperation. Minister Dr. Muhammad Shakir Al-Marqabi, Minister of Electricity and Renewable Energy, and Engineer Tariq Al-Mulla, Minister of Oil. So, as you've kindly mentioned, it was an integrated symphony, if I may call it this way.
Absolutely.
Agriculture and Dr. Said Al-Qusir. Dr. Said Al-Qusir spoke about a very important point, and in fact there were many comments by the president himself when he talked about the millions of fedans to be reclaimed, because if you do have your food, then you are secured. Food security, it's a very important, how I can put it, I mean, it's a national security matter. And particularly after the COVID-19 closures and after the struggle, Ukrainian-Russian struggle, I think the whole world learned that lesson. How do you see this as a first priority, despite the huge sums of money which are going to be spent in this domain?
The return on investment in agriculture is very promising right now. Remember, over 3 million acres developed in the last 9 years, and that is a huge investment. And that is the whole idea. We used to export 80% from our wheat. Now it's the reverse. Now we have local production from our agriculture. If you go abroad in any Gulf state and so on, they export all their vegetables and so on. Thank God in Egypt we don't have that. We have, we self-sustain our agriculture, fruits and vegetables here in Egypt, and also industry integrated with agriculture instead of having fruits, and they build the industry beside that. And that is the idea. Beside any, if you go for Daba, for example, in the left-hand side, where the agriculture, in the right-hand side, the manufacturing and so on. And that is, we enable Egypt to integrate industry with agriculture. It's a very important issue, and we can really maximize our resources more and more in the future. Also, the productivity in agriculture increased, doubled in the last 9 years. The productivity of an acre, for example, it used to produce 5 tons, now it's 10 tons, and so on.
We mentioned sugar cane, for example, in the conference, but the president was very much keen to speak about the sums of money which were paid, because we should know how much this is really expensive. And it's not that easy, but we insisted as a state to continue in this path because simply we do not have an option. And we do not have the luxury of losing or wasting more time.
We wasted a lot of time before. I always call it as we had the sleepy mode before, and now every ministry, the whole government working for our very hard, regardless of devaluation of our currency and so on. The inflation we have we have right now, it is not only an Egyptian thing, but it's a world phenomena right now. And that is not because of us, because of external environment, as you mentioned, like COVID.
Is it going to have the same domino effects? I mean, for example, the United States now are talking about whether they are going to raise the interest rate or no. And it's not, of course, going to be for the best interest of their own economy, despite the fact that we're talking about the United States. And last week, they were speaking about a government shutdown, for example. And here, it's not a developing country, it's the United States. This is going to continue the same way, I mean, with this domino effect, as I called it, or now the case is a little bit different because the map of big powers, it's a little bit changing, or at least it's not with the same heavy weight of before.
It's an economical issue. United States up to 2 years ago, it used to be #1 in economical arena. Now China now, it is very close to be #1. And that is a competition between the superpower, as we mentioned. When we talk about dominoes effect, we are part of the world. Whenever any circumstances happen abroad, it affects us in a way or another. And it affects us in terms of what we call it a supply chain. With supply chain, we don't really, you started talking about localizing. And in today's economical system, localization, it is really impossible for a country to have 100% produce all their product and so on. with the supply chain concept, it got affected heavily with COVID-19, with Russian-Ukrainian war, and so on. But remember, all of that as the threat, I believe we should use it as an advantage for us, because there is a lot of manufacturing facility shut down in Ukraine and in Russia, and we can host this kind of industry here in Egypt. As we mentioned before, I believe in the very near future, within 5 years, Egypt will be the hub for manufacturing in Africa and in the Middle East, and will be able to export our product under one condition: high quality and very competitive price, in order to be able to. And China and many European countries face a problem with logistic cost now is huge due to the current war between Russia and Ukraine, and we have a safe area right now with the Suez Canal, for example, with our closeness as the heart location of Egypt. It is another competitive advantage.
Sure.
And when people come and invest with us and invest in the mainland in Egypt, is very important.
Yeah.
Also in Sinai, it really, I believe, it is the mega advantage for Sinai, because we have a lot of natural resources, a lot of mine
in all domains.
In all domains.
Yeah. Whether it's agriculture, it's mining, it's I mean, you name it. It's such a dear part of our land, and maybe, as we were talking before going on air, we are still celebrating or living the moments of victory, the 6th of October War and the 50th Jubilee of our most important victory in our modern history. I think, as you've told me, sir, this spirit is one of the mega forces we have.
Absolutely.
And if we are able to use this for more development, for another victory, but in this time it's in the field of development, it's going to be another miracle.
When you live during 67, which I was
not born.
Okay, I was really, we faced 67 with during 73 war, October victory, and we should really, and that is very important, Nermeen, is to use the spirit of October to teach our kids, to teach new generation, which didn't really live during this kind of area, in order to, I believe it is the same environment. If you talk about between 67 until 73, it is the same period of time we have right now, and we should really maximize the spirit of October in order to educate
because in time of crisis, our
Absolutely.
sense of belonging is getting deeper, and this is exactly what happened in June 2013, the 30th of June, when millions of Egyptians flooded to the street to ask the then Field Marshal Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the armed forces to rescue Egypt, to save Egypt from this terrorist group, which was about to steal it and to steal our identity even. This sense of belonging can do miracles. But sir, since you mentioned IT, international communication, in one of your answers, and yesterday President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi was keen to experience himself one of the mobile centers of crisis management, and he had a dialogue with many governors via video conference, and he asked them to use these units, mobile centers for crisis management, on the ground with field visits, and they are going to be supplied with the data, information, and to know how to solve any problem on the spot. Since you are a professor of management, how do you see this? And is it a leap? Is it a turning point in the way the state is managing our files or our daily life as citizens?
That is the thinking of President Sisi, is a proactive, not reactive. He didn't wait until a problem happened and he start to act. He really proactive. In terms of proactive, it means he predicting. And what's the meaning of crisis management? It is an early warning. Before the problem happen, we should take our corrective action in order to solve the problem before it happen. And with the new technology like communication technology, and that's what I'm talking about, fourth industrial revolution. It really, we should use that in our daily basis. You sit in an area where you can talk to all government, and also you can talk to the whole world, by the way, and you see it in the spot and solve the problem, existing problem in any other government in Egypt. And that is, again, research, development, scientific centers, university. We should all integrate in order to provide the right information. And the 3 days summit, which we have it last week, it was a transparency. That's what
Very
we did.
much.
That's what we did. What's next in the future? And I believe we should use the spirit of October in order to enhance ourselves, to grow us together. I remember during 73, we can see the great Imam of Al-Azhar, Sheikh Abdul Halim Mahmoud, was in Sinai, was with our armed forces. We saw Amba Shenouda, for example,
Sure.
supporting the spirit of our soldiers. Egyptian people, it is in the gene of Egyptian people. They united together in terms when we have a crisis, we group together. There is no difference between
Of course.
poor and
Simply,
rich. There is
there are
no
even
difference between Christian and Muslim. We all
a
together.
post which was circulated on Facebook with a grave of one of our martyrs, but unfortunately he was not known. So the name, it was unknown. A martyr, but unknown. This unknown, he is only an Egyptian, a Copt. A Copt, meaning he is an Egyptian without knowing anything about his name, about his religion, where he is coming from. He is an Egyptian, and that's it. Also today there was an important tour by Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli in the new administrative capital. And he toured a number of national mega projects and especially housing units, as he was accompanied by Minister of Housing Dr. Asim Al-Qassar. He spoke about the quality of life. He spoke about the green yards, the green parks, the kid areas, and to build all the urban communities in our new cities, whether it's in the new administrative capital or any other fourth generation city, by the way, scattered all over Egypt, just to ensure or to guarantee this quality of life for the Egyptian citizen. And he was keen to say that in the press conference, in his remarks in a press conference after the tour. Tell me your impression, sir, about that.
For example, the new capital of Egypt, 4 years ago, it was a piece of desert. Now, if you go there, you will see international university there, international school there, state-of-the-art housing, apartment, and so on. A lot of green area. It was a desert. It was a desert.
Yes.
It was a desert 4 or 5 years ago. It is a
Exactly
huge,
7 years.
7 years.
Exactly.
Forgive me. And now we see a different things. We see a lot of infrastructure, tunnels, and the bridges going there, high-speed monorail, and so on.
Corridors for pedestrians, I mean, to be safe, to make sure that you are going to enjoy your life. And to add to this, we do not forget about our old architecture. For example, there is it's going to be one of the suburbs, I mean, New Garden City, resembling the architecture style of Garden City, which we do have here in downtown Cairo, the wonderful old capital of Egypt. How do you see having both? I mean, of course, we are modernizing our new cities, but in the same time, we do not forget about our distinguished, unique architectural styles.
That's the image, because we have a crowded city now. Cairo is a very crowded city, and we've been talking about that for the last 40 years. We should really move the capital of Egypt, but now we have the new capital of Egypt. We have many other places. It's coming in the next years and so on, in order to really release. We have a lot of ministry located in different area in Cairo. All of that will be moved. The civil service already will be moved to the new capital, and really it really reduce the load for crowdedness and so on. That is the good news, and that is we started with the new
And the
capital
headquarters,
of
the
Egypt.
government headquarters, it's going to be fully equipped according to the latest technologies, and all the connections, all the data are fully secured.
Absolutely.
And this is also another important side of the coin.
And that is the in the mind of President Sisi is not only the new capital of Egypt, but many other area in the near future. Of course, that is a different level of quality of life, and it really, if you talk about like 50 years ago when we talked about Medinat Nasser, for example, it's impossible. Now it's a crowded area and so on. And this direction it goes. For example, when we used to travel to Suez, for example, it was desert in both sides of the road. Now we can see a lot of compound over there, new business over there, and so on.
The better is coming.
Absolutely.
Well, I enjoyed our discussion as usual, sir.
My last word, when you have a well, you will have a drive, and we should really use the spirit of October in the near future, inshallah.
Inshallah. We were very much delighted and honored to have with us live here in the studio Professor Said Al-Kholy, Professor of Management and former Dean of Faculty of Commerce, Ain Shams University. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Time flying with you.
Thank you. And now we are going to live with some of the most important economic events which took place in the last 7 days. Stay tuned on Nile TV International. Always for more updates and for more details, please log on to www.nileinternational.net. Many thanks for watching. This was Nermina Abdurrahman.